stronger, and have fun. Today, we are going to chat about celebrity workouts because I don't know what my algorithm is right now, but I keep seeing like celebrity workouts pop up on my Instagram, and I just thought the people need to know what is up with these celebrity workouts, because so often, you know, Joey, we'll get clients who have these very specific aesthetic goals. You know, we'll hear people saying like, I want to look like so-and-so celebrity in this movie. And I think there is a lot of education that needs to happen with that about whether or not that is realistic for them. So today we're going to break down two celebrities, their workouts, and kind of give you pros, cons. Is it realistic? Should you try it? Should you not? Just some things to think about.
Yeah, originally when we talked about doing this episode, I did not want to do it simply because I don't have social. I don't really keep up with celebrities. Who cares? Focus on yourself, and that's the best foot forward. However, D, you brought up a great point where people like want to look like that person. Insert athlete, celebrity, whoever there, right? And it's worth and people think that they can attain that. And people think that their workouts are like this unicorn workouts. You know, they're just amazing poetry. And we're going to talk today about how genetics, how nutrition, and how workouts all come into play and into what is actually realistic and attainable for clients. But originally, I was not wanting to do this episode, and I'm glad you convinced me to do so.
You're welcome.
So let's get into Chris Pratt's workout. I don't really know who Chris Pratt is. Dee, do you know who he is? Do you know what movies he starred in?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Joey. Chris Pratt became famous in Parks and Rec, and he played just this like everyday guy, this worker. Chris Pratt's always been obviously so attractive, but in Parks and Rec, he did not have like a fitness, I don't want to say a fitness body. I think all bodies, no matter what they look like, can be fitness bodies. But he transformed himself from like kind of this average Joe look to superhero in Guardians of the Galaxy.
I see. So you keep up on all the tabs. This is why I don't think people should have social in the beginning. So listener, don't compare yourself with others. But I have here his workout. I'm going to go over it real quick, and you tell me what you think of it. I'll do everything pretty quick, and then you give us your 2 cents. Cool?
Sounds good.
Keep in mind that this is just one workout. This is according to thebarbell.com. Keep in mind this is just one phase he went through, so may not speak to all his transformation phases. But here's what he got. It looks like he trained under Duffy Gaver for 5 months before shooting. That's a good amount of time. His sample split was this: a push-pull leg style, where he did a back and biceps day, a chest and triceps day, a leg day, and then a day for delts and traps. So I'm going to start right there. What do you think of that so far?
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of your traditional quote unquote bro split right there. That is like a very traditional bodybuilding style of workout that is focused, I would guess, based on this split, on hypertrophy. So building that muscle mass. I'm sure there was some strength building in there as well. But I mean, I think that is a fine split for that a lot of people do. So there's no like red flags to me here. I think, of course, I typically suggest people make sure they're getting that strength training in, where they're doing the heavier weights, lower reps. But that can still be done in this kind of split for sure.
Let me continue with this. So on back day, he's doing deadlifts, pull-ups, pull-downs, rows, curls, and core work. On chest and tri day, he's doing bench, incline bench, dips, cable work, and extensions, tricep extensions. And then on leg day, he's doing squats, lunges, stiff leg deadlifts, calf raises, and glute bridges. It doesn't say the reps he specifically does, but this sounds like a pretty well-rounded routine. What do you think of those exercises?
Yeah, I think it honestly sounds great. These are like functional compound movements, so working multiple joints within the movement, multiple muscle groups at once. So you're getting a lot of impact there. Impact as in a lot of bang for your buck. It's not like he's doing a lot of isolated movements, like getting on the machines and just doing a leg extension, which is very valid for anybody to do. But I like that there is a lot of functional exercises here. And it sounds like he's also doing, I don't know if you mentioned this yet, but maybe you'll get into it. The conditioning. Like, I'm curious if he's just doing this strength split or if he's doing anything in addition to this.
Yeah, it looks like he throws in cardio circuits, swimming, mountain biking later in the prep season. When I first read this, in any celebrity workout I've seen over the years, like, it's all very basic. And I remember I mentioned to you who Ben Bruno was, right? Ben Bruno is this celebrity trainer, hilarious guy. Everyone should listen to his podcast. Listen to the Joe DeFranco Ben Bruno podcast that came out 3 months ago, where Ben himself and Don Saladino, another celebrity trainer who trained, I forget all these guys' names. He's the guy who played Deadpool. Anyways, he says it's Brian Reynolds. Thank you. It's very basic. Like, I look at this, it's extremely basic. Nothing is unicorn. And this just speaks to the fact that genetics that got them here to even be on the screen, right? You have to fill a certain profile to play an action hero, right? Or even just get on screen. Like, that is the big rock, right? Like, people cannot overlook genetics. And then nutrition, and this is what Ben and Don talk about, is how critical the nutrition is leading up to it. Ben even speaks that it's almost 10 times compounded than the actual exercise. But listeners, I don't want you to discount how important your genetics are and how important that nutrition is, and then sleep and recovery, right? And we talked that before. But when I look this over, my 2 cents is it looks pretty good. It's not this, again, unicorn workout split.
So you mean it is basic? Like, it's fairly basic.
It's fairly basic, extremely.
Yeah,
I don't
I would
see
agree.
any contrast training in there, no French contrast, no cluster sets, no crazy drop sets. It's not very specialized. It looks like very aesthetic based, which I think most people are training for, right? Aesthetics. But when you step in the performance realm of strength and conditioning, that's where it gets like you'll look at a program, and you're like, holy cow, this is like next level, like German volume training stuff. Like, it's not that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a program that anyone could try. I think where to be cautious of a program like this is you have to remember that as a celebrity, you are getting paid millions of dollars to look a certain way and be a certain type for the film, to play that character. So he's literally getting paid he's probably not the one even paying his trainer. The movie might be paying his trainer. And they're paying him that trainer tons of money to do these workouts, and he himself is required to do this program to fulfill the role of this movie. So he has time on his hands. This is part of his workday. Whereas the average person, you and me, Joey, we, between our families obligations, our household obligations, our full-time job obligations, it becomes harder to fit in a program like this. Like, this split, very reasonable. Looks like 4 days of strength training. Very reasonable. But maybe he's spending 90 minutes plus in the gym. The average person may not be able to spend that much time in the gym. So maybe doing a modified version of this that is like 45 to an hour is more reasonable. Allowing yourself that flexibility where, yeah, maybe you can't get in there. You have to shorten your workout down to 30 minutes, or you have to do it in 3 days instead of 4 because we have additional responsibilities outside of what a celebrity might have. And then your point to nutrition. It's very likely that Chris Pratt had to be extremely specific with his nutrition, counting macros, meal timing, being very diligent. That is also something that is not sustainable for the average everyday person, or at least it's not sustainable long term. So I'm curious. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have to go in, like, I've seen when the movie 300 came out, with Gerard Butler and, all those Spartan guys. Do you remember that movie, D, where they all have 6-packs? Well, all of them went on to say how difficult the nutrition part was, as opposed to the workouts. And I'll never forget, there came this 300 workout where it's like 50 deadlifts, 50 push-ups, 50 box jumps. And I actually did that workout one time, and I like my left knee after the fifth, like after the box jumps, it just like swelled and it was hot. And I was like, this is freaking stupid. Why am I doing this? And people see this on the reels. I mean, it still happens today, you know, and they're like, oh, to look like that, I have to train like that. Well, the myth is all this high volume training is going to make you look like that, right? The reality is like this is not sustainable, period. And so that 300 workout is not the way to do it. Just because the celebrity is doing it, or at least doing like 5 reps in the Instagram reel, not the whole thing, right, does not mean you're going to look like that. So this all to say that, again, it all goes down to what is sustainable, what can fit in your life. And I know these celebrities are very busy as well, like The Rock. Like, no one's busier than The Rock. We were talking earlier before this aired about how busy you and I were. Well, The Rock takes that to like the 10th level. And he does, if you look at his workouts, again, super basic. What he can do, what he can repeat and do over the long haul is exactly what you're looking for. Knowing that, again, genetics play the biggest part, nutrition and sleep play a bigger part, in my opinion, and in celebrities' opinion, just ask them how hard it is, and then the movement.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think all of these celebrities are super busy. When you shoot a movie like this, you're on set for like 12 hours a day. But I think the key difference is that this is what they're part of what they're being paid for is to have to look this certain way to fit the role of the character. So, you know, most everyday people, they're not getting paid to go do their workout, whereas these celebrities are. It's part of their job requirement. So I think it becomes a little bit easier to fit in with everything else because they really have to commit to looking a certain way for this movie. Now, I would say we all have to commit to exercise. It's something we all have to do. But to this extreme, I don't think it's necessary. And like you said, it's not sustainable. And I think not only would I put money on it, but I know that it's the case because of the next celebrity we're going to talk about who specifically talks to this point, which is once the movie's done, they don't keep going with that. They pull it way back to something that is actually sustainable. And that also means they don't look super ripped and cut like they did in the movie because that look is not sustainable. And I think one last point to that, like even if somebody, let's say one of our clients, did this exact program and ate this exact diet, they still at the end of the day would not look like Chris Pratt. You would still look like you. You would look like, you know, a really, you know, lean maybe version, but of you. It's very, like you said, down to genetics as well. You're never going to look like a different celebrity. You're always going to look like you.
I totally agree. And training for aesthetics, always, and just ask a bodybuilder this or a fitness competitor this, all aesthetic training eventually gets to the point where it can be pretty unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, like you said, it's not sustainable. So listener, if there's, well, I mean, you could take a million nuggets, but I guess my big nugget is this, is there, with every training goal, there is a deal with the devil you're going to make, whether that's jumping higher, throwing a faster fastball, getting a six pack, like especially leaning out and getting the aesthetics, like peak phase, like right before you step on stage or in front of the TV. There's some backlash there. So proceed with caution. Find your sustainable. But anyways, let's go over Jessica Biel. What do you say?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Jessica Biel, and I wanted to bring her in because recently it's been making the rounds on social. She gave the exact details of one of the workouts that she does after having this like viral white dress moment from a movie, and she talked about her workout and she went over it in Women's Health as well. So it's really been making the rounds, so I thought we should talk about it. So we don't have all the details of Jessica Biel's workout routine like we had for Chris Pratt's here, but here's like essentially or basically what she does, and then I'll break down one of the exact workouts. So it seems like she's doing between 3 and 5 days of strength training and pretty intense workouts. And it's a mix of like more traditional strength training and Pilates workouts. And then it seems like we're mixing that in with like some specific core work as well, maybe some circuit training type of workouts, as well as hiking and adding mobility in. You love to see people adding mobility in. So it's kind of a mix of all these different things, like yoga is included in there as well. So what do you think of just that? Like that kind of breakdown of like those different modalities of fitness?
I love it. The more variability you have, You mentioned, your mobility. You mentioned she does strength training, right? I hope she does some sort of aerobic in there. I'm sure she does just for her
The
health.
hiking.
The hiking, thank you. The more movement you can do and the more buckets you can fill, the more dynamic your training is. I absolutely love it. Unless you are very specific goal driven, right? If you're running a marathon, you kind of need to prioritize more running. If you're a power lifter, more bench squat dead. So I love the variety here. I don't see any problems with it. I know her trainer Ben Bruno. He was an intern at Mike Boyle's a long time ago, like when he first started. And Ben has always talked about always prioritizing, and that we've said it before, consistency in everything you do, right? And that's what I see her is just she's really going after the consistency piece rather than the intensity piece.
Yeah, I think she does train really hard though. Like she really does train hard, but it does sound like she's mixing in fun, right? Like things that she just enjoys to do is what it sounds like. So, okay, let me tell you what her exact workout was that she talked about and that I saw on Instagram. So she does barbell hip thrusts, and I can't remember the exact reps and sets, but it kind of was that middle range we were talking about, like 3 to 4 sets of about like 10 to 12 reps is what we were looking at. So barbell hip thrusts, Romanian deadlifts, hamstring curls. So this is a leg day that she shared. Goblet step ups or goblet step through lunges. So like you step forward and then you step back and you step forward and you step back. A cable glute kickback and then kettlebell dead bugs. And she did those as like straight sets, not like a circuit or anything. So did all the sets before moving to the next exercise. And I thought what was really cool when she shared this is she shared it from like, I think it must have been maybe a hotel gym or some sort of like not her usual workout space. And she just modified it to do the equipment she had. I loved that because I thought that spoke really well to like, you can't have an all or nothing mindset if you want to be consistent with fitness. She didn't have a barbell available to her. She didn't have a cable machine available. So she showed the movements with dumbbells and bands. And I thought that was so cool. What do you think of that workout?
That's solid. Will you go over and this is probably just like her general fitness. Like this isn't like a workout she's probably doing to get like in peak condition, right? Did it say that? Like did it say like training for this movie, doing this workout, or was it just
So
general?
so she didn't say, I don't think she said if this was one of her workouts that she did specifically for this movie. But what she did say, which I loved, which I alluded to earlier, was that when she's working out for a movie, she's training at a much higher intensity than what she normally would sustain when she's not specifically training for a movie or a red carpet or something like that. And I thought that was like really important for people to hear that Jessica Biel, the way you see her in a movie, that's not what she always looks like because that is not sustainable. So I think that this was just one of like her maybe like everyday workouts that she does or like every week workouts that she does.
I like it. I mean, this is more of a hip dominant. So you got barbell hip thrusts, right? That's posterior chain. RDLs, posterior chain. Hamstring curls, posterior chain. Then she's got goblet step through lunges. That's a knee dominant. And then she's going back to hip dominant glute kickbacks and then doing some core. So I it's pretty good. What I would love to see in there though is some lateral movement or some transverse movement because this is all mainly sagittal plane, so forward and backward movements. But it's checking all the boxes. I mean, that'd be the one thing. And I would just title this as again a hip dominant workout, as opposed to a knee dominant workout where you're doing squats, Bulgarians. So she must be really focused on glute work, I bet.
Yeah, I think she did say that the lower body workout is primarily glute focused. And I think I had the same takeaway. Like if you're going to into the gym to do a lower body workout, specifically lower body, I would say mix in some more knee dominant movements in there to be a little more well-rounded and or add another lower body day where you're focusing primarily on those knee dominant movements and a little less on the glute movements just to balance things out a little more.
And yeah, it always depends. Like if you're recovering from a bilateral ACL, then you're gonna have to do more hip dominant work. But I do think this has a point though. The same thing for upper back. Like glute work should be more dominant over knee dominant work, I think. Like let's just say for every three lower body exercises you do two hip dominant, one knee dominant. So hip thrust, deadlift, and then like a split squat. And then for upper back, right, and pushing, I think you should do for every two. Well, I can break it down to reps, like 1 to 3, but just do more horizontal pulling than you do actual horizontal pushing. So I mean like more rows, chest supported rows, any kind of Cobra YTAs, any kind of band pull aparts. Do those primarily and then do your chest work, because what tends to get overworked and overused and tight and tonic is your chest, right, your pecs and your quads and hip flexors. So I think the listener can learn that yes, glute work is a good focus.
Yeah. So now, what I read here, they didn't really talk much about her nutrition, but if I
Yeah,
had
it's
to
so funny.
guess, I would say the same. It's probably very regimented and much more strict during a time that she's training for a movie or for some sort of event. And I think, like, one of the other points I want to talk about with nutrition is that yes, it can be very fun and exciting to look a very certain way, and and sure, that can build and boost confidence. But when you are that strict with your nutrition, there is very little spontaneity that you're able to have in your life. You're likely not able to just go out to dinner with friends or just say, what am I feeling in the mood for tonight? You do have to be, really locked in if that is what you want to achieve. And over time, I think the cons of that tend to outweigh the pros. I think in general, maybe not being quite as lean makes you happier because you can have that more of that spontaneity and enjoy more foods, have more variety in what you're eating.
Yeah, I agree. I think every human though should go through a phase or in a calendar year, let's say, where they have a season where they really do dial it in. For 2 months maybe, or even a month or 3 months. Like I tell my male clients, like trying to get under like a certain body fat, like 10%, like 15%, right? I think that's good because it gives you goal, right? And it's short enough not to cause these long-term issues. You just have to be okay with not looking at like year round, right? But it develops discipline, it develops routine, develops good habits, right? Good habits. I say that in quotes because eating salad every day, can't, may not be the right thing. But I think periodically it's healthy to hone in on an aesthetic goal. However, again, it always depends. If you have a history, of body image stuff, it can be deadly. So maybe you need to go the opposite way where you give yourself, a freedom, maybe not a freedom year where you're having everything you want and you're sitting on the couch, but sprinkle in times of the year or times of every 5 years, whatever macro cycle you're looking at, that you can really hone in on specific things. It might not be aesthetics, but hey, maybe it's, again, I can walk longer, like I can walk a mile or I can run a 5K with my grandkids or whatever that is. So I think it can be healthy.
I probably disagree with that because even the first time that I tried to hone in, it became a slippery slope of eating disorders and disorder eating for a whole decade. And I had never had eating issues before that very first time that I tried to be very specific with my diet. I think I would suggest people be very, very cautious of how restrictive you want to be with your nutrition. Of course, I think there are times for, trying to improve the amount of nutrition you're getting and reduce the amount of like play foods you're having or just like strictly fun foods that you're having and finding that balance for yourself. But yeah, I think like there's learning opportunities in all of these things. I usually advocate for just having balance 365, Every day you're just finding that balance with yourself and there's always an opportunity to get quote unquote back on track, right? You have that bowl of ice cream, maybe you ate a little more than you wanted. Cool, no problem. Very next meal, get your protein, get your veggies, get your fruit right back on track. No problems. So, yeah, I think
It's the getting back on track. And like you said, D, you have a very, unique background. And it just depends on where you're coming from for sure. And we have the differences. I'm not surprised you disagree with that because, I'm very goal oriented, right? I love goals because the problem without a goal is you can run up and down the field the entire game and not score, right? And you're more loosey-goosey on goals. And my clients, they're very powerful, right, to set a goal that they can achieve. So yeah, I think it always depends on your background and whatnot. But we can't make any blanket statements because it always
Yeah.
depends. Any fitness advice we give. So there you have it with celebrity workouts, D. I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. So I don't know, listeners, if you decide to try one of these workout plans or do one of these workouts, let us know. I'd also love to just hear your thoughts. Is this something that you'd want to try to achieve, or do you think, I don't know. I'm interested to hear what people think after listening to this episode.
Hopefully you take my advice. Get off social. Don't pay attention to the celebrities. Just focus on yourself. Focus on your family. What can you do? I think the world would be a better place if we all did that.
Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the Trainwell podcast. We love having you here, and we'll talk again soon.
Don't forget, click the link below. Try us out 2 weeks free. Get matched with your own personal trainer. We love you guys. Talk to you next time.